Order. Order. The sitting is resumed. Urgent question on the Women's Health Strategy. Mims Davies.
To ask the Secretary of State for Health and Social Care if he will make a statement on the Women's Health Strategy.
Minister Karin Smyth.
Madam Deputy Speaker, and can I really thank the Honourable Member opposite for giving me the opportunity to set out our commitment to the Women's Health Strategy and everything this government is doing to fix our broken NHS, clean up the mess the Conservatives left after 14 years and get women treated on time again. When we came into office, we inherited record waiting lists. The waiting list for gynaecology stood at just under 600,000 women. Let that sink in, Madam Deputy Speaker. 600,000 women in pain, waiting to be cared for. Almost half of the women on gynaecology waiting lists are waiting more than 18 weeks. That's why the Prime Minister kicked off 2025 with our elective reform plan, setting how we will cut the longest waiting list from 18 months to 18 weeks. Our new agreement with the independent sector will mean women can be treated faster for gynaecology care, where spare capacity exists in the private sector, paid for by the state. Madam Deputy Speaker, this government is also committed to rooting out the appalling inequalities that exist in maternity care. We are supporting failing trust into rapid improvement, training thousands more midwives for the first time. We will set an explicit target to close the Black and Asian maternal mortality gap. We are piloting a training programme to help avoid brain injury for babies in childbirth, and if successful, we will crack on with rolling it out nationally this year. And in October, we extended the baby loss certificate service to help mums and dads who have suffered the heartbreak of pregnancy loss. Madam Deputy Speaker, let me also address the issue of women's health hubs. There was a target in last year's planning guidance to roll out pilot women's health hubs across the country by last December. Today, there are at least 80 hubs, and at least 9 out of every 10 integrated care systems has an open women's health hub. Let me correct some fake news, Madam Deputy Speaker. We are not closing them. We are not cutting them. The target to roll them out was in last year's planning guidance. It was achieved in 93% of integrated care systems, and that is why the target is not repeated in this year's. It has been met in 39 out of 42 areas. Today, we have slimmed down the number of targets for the NHS to focus on fixing the fundamentals, the system they broke. We are instructing the NHS to prioritise cutting waiting times for operations, A&E and ambulances, making it easier to see a GP or a dentist, and improving the mental health of the nation. That will mean around 60,000 women with suspected cancer are diagnosed earlier and treated faster. More than 200,000 extra women will be treated within 18 weeks as we drive down long waits, and fewer women will be forced to wait 12 hours in A&E. That's the difference a Labour government is making for women's health.
Mims Davies.
For too long, Women's Health Service experiences is one of being pushed from pillar to post. Women's voices crucially ignored, and responses too slow to pain, to suffering, to poor sex lives, to traumatic births, and an overall sense of being forgotten. 2.4 million more women were in work under our government, and pain and suffering for too many women was affecting them and their ability to be in the labour market, taking maybe early retirement or not having their true career potential fulfilled. We took direct action, crucially listening to women's experiences, with almost 100,000 responses to our call for evidence on the gender health gap. Appointing Dame Leslie Regan as the Women's Health Ambassador, alongside Helen Tomlinson, the cross-government menopause ambassador, working with sectors on the experience of women employed in them, delivering and funding new women's health hubs and creating joined-up services in the community. The Royal College of Gynaecologists estimates that by removing the requirement of the ICB to have a women's health hub will impact 600,000 women on waiting lists in England, creating longer waits, preventable disease progression and more women attending A&E, unable to work, care or live a fulfilled life. Labour's manifesto said they will prioritise women's health. Women are now reported to be a lobby group, Madam Deputy Speaker, relegated to being unheard once again. Can the Minister confirm if if it's true these targets to deal with women's needs will be dropped. If so, what is her justification, and will she be delivering on the roundedly welcomed women's health strategy from 2022? 1,300 families gave evidence to the all-party group on birth trauma. What are the actual plans to drive up maternity safety standards across the country? Will they respond to it? Will Dame Leslie Regan be sacked? Will she remain the Women's Health Ambassador? Or will she be replaced, just like Helen Tomlinson, who was replaced as the menopause employment champion by someone who seems more interested in selling books than delivering on the ground for women? What steps are being taken on sex-specific language in health communications and guidance?
Shadow Minister will know that there is a time limit which she has exceeded. I've been very generous. Minister.
Thank you, Madam Deputy. Well, I think I've addressed most of the points made in my outline statement, and I think the Shadow Minister had written most of that when they thought that actually we were cancelling things and then had to find out that we weren't cancelling things. So I've made that very clear, our commitment to the Women's Health Strategy and the way in which we seek to instruct the system at a local level to serve the needs of women and particularly prioritise those waiting lists. The reason for the targets is, as I've already outlined, that they're already achieved. Unusually, Madam Deputy Speaker, I'm going to give a bit of credit to the other side, because actually lots of this was rolled out. It was good practice. The system still thinks it's good practice, so sometimes they should take a win. We committed to that. It's embedded in the system, and we look forward to the outcomes being improved for women.
Chair of the Women and Equalities Select Committee, Sarah Owen.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The Women and Equalities Committee report on women's reproductive health started under our fantastic predecessors, laid out how medical misogyny has left far too many women suffering. Women have been left undiagnosed with debilitating conditions such as endometriosis for on average 8 years. That's not treatment, that's diagnosis. Black women 4 to 5 times more likely to die during childbirth, and the rate of maternal death in the UK has risen by 15% in the last 10 years. The leading cause of that is suicide, accounting for 39% of deaths in the first year postpartum. So will the Minister agree that it is women, and women of colour especially, who have borne the brunt too often of 14 years of disastrous health policies, and how can they reverse this trend?
Minister.
Well, I thank the Chair of the Committee for her question. I think she was congratulating the previous committee rather than the opposition afterwards, and the Chair for their work, and very pleased to have been witnessing some of that work previously in opposition, and she's absolutely right. I think the work of many women in this chamber, whilst in opposition, and to be fair to many women in the government, have made sure that issues around, particularly endometriosis, we had a very good debate in the chamber recently, have risen up the agenda. That's why we are committed to taking forward the strategy. That's why we are committed. We think the health hubs, for example, are doing a good job. There's lots of learning to be done from them, and we will continue to do so.
Liberal Democrat spokesperson, Dr Danny Chambers.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Nearly 600,000 women waiting for treatment for gynaecology waiting lists in England, and the longest waits are leading to preventable diseases progressing, and it's one of the worst specialities for long waits. And we know the Care Quality Commission has investigated and reported that 65% of maternity units are not as safe as they should be. That high number could almost be considered a public health crisis, and it has led to a huge amount, be the highest amount of negligent payouts due to injury, avoidable injury, and even death. And this absolutely needs to be addressed. And there's many women, Madam Deputy Speaker, like my partner Emma, who has had to fight for years to get just a diagnosis for endometriosis, yet alone any treatment, having been told for years that the symptoms are completely normal and don't need investigating.
Order. I know I'm being difficult on time limits, but the Liberal Democrat spokesperson should have 1 minute in an urgent question, which the honourable gentleman has already far exceeded. So perhaps he would come up with a question in one sentence for the Minister. Dr Danny Chambers.
Apologies, Madam Deputy Speaker. In one sentence, yes, the Government's manifesto rightly said never again will women's health be neglected. Can we have assurances that we will not remove the ICB requirement to have women's health hubs?
Minister.
I thank the Honourable Gentleman for Labour spokesperson for his question. He's absolutely right to highlight those long waits. That's why we highlighted in the elective reform plan, particularly highlighted gynaecology for particular attention, because it is shocking that the last government left 600,000 women on these lists, and you know, the moving back to making sure that people wait within 18 weeks will be predominantly helping those women. He's absolutely right also to highlight the appalling situation with maternity. Honourable members will have heard the Secretary of State, in particular my honourable friend Baroness Merrin, who leads on this area, have met with many families they're experiencing. We know that's not acceptable. We know there are big issues around staffing. That is an absolute priority to work with NHS England to make sure we grow the workforce capacity as quickly as possible to make sure that those situations are safe. I know there are many debates in this place about the issue and we'll continue to update the House.
Rachel Taylor.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. 5 times more research went into erectile dysfunction, which affects 19% of men, than into premenstrual syndrome, which affects 90% of women under the last government. Women waiting more than 8 years for endometriosis diagnoses, GPs not required to undertake a gynaecological rotation within their training. Women's health must be put at the head of our agenda. Can the Minister assure women in this country that things under this government will change?
I absolutely will give my honourable friend that assurance, and it will partly change because people like her and more women in this place, and more women across all parties, raising this issue, or more women in senior positions in the IHR, a phrase I can never say, and crucially, you know, women leading in science, in research. The misogyny around the system and medical systems is also important for making sure that women lead this work, and we want to make sure that the NIHR, who do have a strategy to address this, absolutely rectify the situation that she outlines.
Mark Pritchard.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The Minister will be aware of the Ockenden report back in 2022, which highlighted the very tragic cases, over 200 mothers and babies killed over a period of years at the Shrewsbury and Telford NHS Hospital Trust. The Donna Ockenden recently returned to the Trust and said that she was very surprised and disappointed to hear from those parents affected and those families affected that the Trust had not been communicating as well as it should have done and not updating the families in a timely manner. Does the Minister agree with me that communication is key, but also that reviews like those undertaken by Donna Ockenden should also have the remit to go back and check and monitor on the progress of maternity services that are either improving or not?
I thank him for his question, and I completely agree. We know that the work that Donna Ockenden has done is hugely valuable. A lot of faith and trust placed in that, particularly around families. And I know I don't know specific dates that the right Secretary of State I know and my honourable friend Baroness Merrin, who leads on this work, have been meeting with her and discussing with her. I'm happy to get back to her on specifics. On the specific point about the remit, I don't know the answer to that question. I think it's an entirely sensible about looking at that, learning from mistakes. I know it's a challenge system, and we have to learn from those areas. If there's specific things we need to get back to, I'll get back to him on that, on the specifics of that. But it's absolutely a priority. I know the Secretary of State is meeting with families directly. We know and understand that we have to do much better on this for everybody.
Julie Mims.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I'm slightly tempted, having listened to the Shadow Minister, to suggest to the Minister that our women's health strategy includes provision for the treatment of collective memory loss, having completely ignored the fact for the last 14 years you've allowed the Honourable Member and the Minister, the Shadow Minister has let our NHS fall into dispute. But I did want to talk specifically about how our health strategy will deal with the treatment and support for young people, in particular young women, suffering from depression and anxiety. This follows the very tragic case in my own constituency and a coroner's report last week which found that our local hospital was not able to support that patient.
She's right to highlight some tragic instances. I know she'll be working hard on behalf of her constituents, and absolutely committed to the women's health strategy. Clearly, that will be taken forward as part of our the 10-year plan. A really important part of that. I met with my honourable friend Baroness Merrin yesterday, and the team around supporting that plan to make sure that we understand how those key issues are taken forward. And just an opportunity, if I may, Madam Deputy Speaker, the consultation on that plan, the ideas, is still open. We're very keen to hear, particularly from young people, to make sure we get a true representation. They don't often consult on these sorts of things, so if we can encourage young people and people who are suffering, particularly from depression and mental health issues, to contribute their thoughts about the system they're facing, we're very grateful as part of our 10-year plan consultation.
Christine Jardine.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. I'm sure we all welcome the move to reduce waiting lists and recognise that Women's Health Strategy is a 10-year plan. But given the enormous problems already highlighted by the honourable members for Luton North and Winchester, does the Minister appreciate that this will seem to many women having trouble accessing often fragmented gynaecological services, that a vital facility is about to be lost? And they will see the government's promises of never again as sounding hollow. So what will the government do to reassure all the women who are concerned about this move?
I'm not entirely clear what the honourable member is referring to, because as I've been very clear, we are committed to the women's health strategy. We will take it forward as part of the 10-year plan. Most of the, I think if it's about the women's health hubs, if I can clarify across the benches, then they are mainly there in different forms with different levels of services. We want to make sure that these systems reflect their local population needs. That's an entirely proper way to go about this. So, as I said earlier, unusually, a lot of these hubs as pilots were rolled out under the previous administration. We actually think that they are doing a good job in most areas, not everywhere. We want to learn from the pilots that are out there. So our commitment is absolutely to women. That's why gynaecology waiting lists are particularly targeted, because we had 600,000 women on them. So women should feel really assured about the support that this government is giving to them and their health, to prioritise their health, and the Women's Health Hub's very keen to learn more about them. They will be different in different places because there are different populations. That is entirely with keeping with the direction of travel of this government.
Kirstine Sullivan.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. And I'd also like to thank my honourable friend, the member for Luton North, for her work in raising the serious health inequalities that women across the UK are facing every single day. Does the Minister agree with me that we need more expertise in women's health issues in primary care settings in order to ensure early diagnosis and that women get the treatment that they need at the earliest point?
I think my friend makes an excellent point, both about the work of our friend from Luton North and chair the Select Committee, and the importance of primary and community care, recognising, listening and supporting women and through women's health, and making sure that the knowledge we have and good practice is spread across the team. And this is an area where different systems have women's health hubs using different teams, different technology, different links in with their secondary care colleagues and specialist colleagues, and really listening to each other and working together are so good about spreading some of that good practice.
Richard Holden.
Thank you very much indeed, Madam Deputy Speaker. And I welcome the Minister coming to the House today to answer this urgent question, because it does seem slightly confused, the argument she's putting forward. On one side, the women's health hubs seem to be working on the whole, and there's lots of them, so why remove the target for everybody to have them if we're already 90% there? And the second point, a lot of them seem to be doing good work, and best practice is clearly emerging from within the women's health hubs. So why cancel the target for the programme rather than spread that good practice throughout the system? And in answer to the broad question, I think, from this side of the House, why remove the targets as well, specifically relating to women, from the government's agenda going forwards? Because it does feel to many women, and obviously the Royal College of Obstetricians and Gynaecologists who've been in contact with me, that this is downgrading the role that women are getting within the NHS.
I'll try and be brief, Madam Deputy Speaker, but it is hard to explain For the opposite member. Targets in the NHS haven't been met since 2015 under his government's watch. Actually, on this, it has been met. There's only 3 places in the country that don't have a hub. That's why there's no target for them, because it's already been met. The issue now is to look at the outcomes from those hubs to see how they are performing. We think, the system thinks, they do a good job. That's why they're staying. That's why we're committed to them. That's why we want to learn from them.
Mohammed Yassin.
Madam Speaker, Bedford Hospital once had a gold standard home birth service, which in recent months has been run down within the wider trust due to unfilled vacancies. Many of my constituents are concerned at the prospect of losing the service that put women's needs and health choices first. Will the women's health strategy ensure women can access a consistent midwifery service that provides genuine choice for safe home births?
Again, my friend makes an excellent point about maternity services, which are not good enough around the country, and they are not consistent, and it is a source of great alarm for many people across the country. So absolutely, yes, maternity remains a high priority within the overall women's health strategy.
Lisa Smart.
Very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. If you're black and having a baby, you are more than 3 times more likely to die than if you're white and having a baby. And I'm sure the Minister and across the House all members will agree that that is a national disgrace. I was encouraged to hear the Minister mention a target for maternal mortality disparity in her opening remarks. So I'd be very grateful if she could confirm that the elimination of that disparity is the target and update the House when the NHS plans to achieve it.
Yeah.
She makes the point again about targets, because this is something, and using targets, because this is something that is a high priority, is not happening. And absolutely, that is why I mentioned it in my opening comments, to make sure that happens.
Barry Gardner.
40 years ago this month, my wife almost died of an eclamptic seizure, because a general practitioner had failed to recognise the symptoms of preeclampsia. The most recent report on preeclampsia says that today 4 times as many women are dying of preeclampsia than were dying in 2012. That's an absolute disgrace. If men got preeclampsia, they would have solved the problem of preeclampsia many, many years ago. Please can the Minister assure me and everyone else that the women's health strategy will focus on preeclampsia and finally try and find a solution?
Yeah. Well, he makes a very powerful case for an experience that him and his wife have gone through, and 40 years. I think it highlights sometimes how, and unacceptably, it takes such a long time to get what is known as good practice through the system and have that consistency for women and their families in the overall system. His points are very powerfully made, and absolutely we need to make sure that those maternity services do understand best practice and then it's rolled out properly across the country.
Greg Smith.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The Minister in an earlier answer rightly talked about the arrangement the government has with spare capacity in the independent sector. But what my female constituents and women up and down the land will want to know is what that actually means in practice. What does that mean for the 260,000 women waiting more than 18 weeks for gynaecology treatment? How many treatments will the independent sector be delivering, and on what timescale to get those women the treatment that they need?
Well, he can tell his women constituents what I hope everyone across the House will be able to tell their constituents, that this government inherited 600,000 women on those waiting lists, and we are committed, as it says in our elective reform plan, which highlighted gynaecology in particular, to get those waiting lists down from 18 months to 18 weeks in the lifetime of this Parliament.
And Thomas.
Mr. Speaker, I represent almost 40,000 women. They and the men who love them would invite the Minister to state explicitly that the government will not draw down their access to women's health hubs or remove the targets with regards to women's health. Thank you.
I mean, I have made that commitment several times from this dispatch box, that the women's health hubs we think are working across the country. I don't know exactly how his one works at the moment. There are only 3 that don't have a women's health hub, so we expect them to get on with that and have them and make sure we have the learning from them across the country.
Jerome Mayhew.
Madam Deputy Speaker, the Minister got her tone wrong when dealing with this urgent question. If you turn up late for a UQ, the least you can do is actually take the questions from the opposition front seriously. Now, Amanda Pritchard, the CEO of NHS England, has said that the health service doesn't always have the needs of women at its heart. So what message does the government think scrapping women's health targets will send?
Well, you know, the Chief Executive is right that the government didn't have women's health at the heart of its strategy. That's why we do.
David Mundell.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. As co-chair of the all-party group on HIV/AIDS, can I ask the Minister about the very low take-up of PrEP amongst women in the UK and what steps are being taken to change that? Obviously, there are barriers such as stigma and low levels of information, but does she agree with me that PrEP should be made available not just in sexual health settings, particularly as we've had the rollout of opt-out testing?
Well, can I first thank him for the work that he does in this area. He does an excellent job and makes an excellent point. I don't know the detailed answer to that question. It's not directly my area, but I think he makes an excellent point. I'm very happy to make sure that we write to him about that.
Jim Shannon.
Madam Deputy Speaker, can I thank the Minister very much for her answers to the questions. The Women Health Survey for Northern Ireland closes tomorrow, and through it the Department of Health back home are hoping to have a greater understanding of how government are feeling women. The results of this Northern Ireland-wide project will ensure they'll be able to find those areas which are lacking, in particular the endometriosis support. So can I ask the Minister, will she make contact with the Northern Ireland Assembly and their health strategy to share the survey, the results and the data available, so that government here and the Northern Ireland Assembly back home can work better together to make women's health better across this great United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland? Thank you.
As he knows, I think the health needs of women in Northern Ireland and the waiting list there are particularly problematic. So anything that our department can do to support learning across the United Kingdom is a personal commitment of mine, and absolutely make sure that we do that, and happy to meet with them or talk with them if necessary, or even visit, which I always like doing. Thank you.
Point of order, Victoria Atkins.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. On this incredibly important issue of the Women's Health Strategy and the fact that the word woman has been excluded from this updated planning guidance, could you help me understand, as a common courtesy to both you and to the House, when a minister is unable to organise themselves such that they can get to the chamber on time, is it not courteous to apologise to those of us she has kept waiting before this important subject can be discussed?
I thank the honourable member for her point of order. She is, of course, correct that it is courteous to the House for an apology to have been made. 5 minutes of time was wasted this morning. I think the Minister would like to make a further point of order.
I absolutely unequivocally apologise for that.
And I thank the Minister for that, and we will take a few moments to move on to the next business.